And thank everybody for joining. Looks like we have 28 people here today. And we're going to be talking about Viewmasters, specifically Walt Disney World and Viewmaster. There's an interesting tie-in for those that are World's Fair aficionados. Viewmaster actually made its debut for the 1939 World's Fair when they had been experimenting with the system, came up with it, and they didn't even have a patent. So if you get your first Viewmaster reels from 1939, it's patent pending, and they got their patent for it in 1940. So you're all familiar with it. It's the little cardboard reels. I should have taken one to the size of a CD, maybe a little smaller, and they hold 14 different pictures on them, and which gives you 7 stereo image per reel. The company has gone, or the whole ownership of Viewmaster has gone through an amazing number of owners over the years, being sold to Ideal Toys, Tyco Toys, a whole variety of them. But they estimate that they produced over 1.5 billion Viewmaster reels in that period of time. I have a fair number of Viewmasters. It's actually interesting. A lot of the ones we have came from Carol's side of the family, that her parents collected a number of the Viewmasters of different scenic things from around the world, because you could get these not just of events like World's Fairs or places like theme parks, but you could get a Viewmaster reel of the Grand Canyon or a Viewmaster reel of the Okefenokee Swamp or all sorts of things. So there are several thousand of these reels in existence. A lot of them are real common and some are real hard to get. And you can see online, people are going, crazy to buy that one last one that they particularly need. But for today, we're going to be looking at Disney World, and they've had Viewmasters available from the time that the Disney parks opened. And it's a kind of interesting challenge. Well, oh yes, TrueView. TrueView is another one. Leslie's holding it up there. TrueView is another competing system where instead of a reel that went up and down, it was a sleeve that went through the viewer. I have a bunch of TrueViews, and again, it gives you a nice stereo effect. These things were always made to be shown or viewed in viewers. And if you look at, there's a TrueView viewer. We have to do a TrueView day someday. The thing that's an interesting challenge is being able to share these on the computer, because if you remember the size of the reels and you got 14 pictures on them, each picture, as Leslie's holding them up, the TrueView's images are about the same size as the Viewmasters, about an inch. So we're going to be looking at these things today. Like my monitor here is a 26-inch monitor. Things are a lot bigger than we ever thought we would be looking at when we bought these things. We also found out if you work with the Viewmasters, over the years, a lot of the film stock was unstable in 2 ways. We all know from a lot of the souvenir slides that they turned red, that the colors would fade, and like all the scenic master, or the scenic views of the fair have turned red. The Viewmasters also end up with a problem, a bunch of them, that the film starts bubbling, either the cardboard of the reel bubbles and starts deteriorating, or some of the film can do it. So when you blow that up 26 times the size of what you started with, the defects become kind of apparent. But just for the ones I have today, and I don't have every Viewmaster from the parks, I probably have a lot more from Disneyland than I do from Disney World. But the way I did these was I put them on a flatbed scanner, scanned them at about, I think it was 2,400 dots per inch, something like that. And then a fellow wrote a program which actually takes your flat scan of it. Let me just throw folks on mute here 1 second. Okay. You put them on a flatbed scanner, and this guy wrote a program which is really kind of neat, that it goes and it figures out how to take the images and then make 3D views out of them. So let me just start here with share screen. I'll get something started here 1 second. So what I've got these today, they're all in different folders on my computer. So I will be jumping back and forth between things here. But again, familiar with it, Viewmaster, the wonderful world of stereo pictures, 21 pictures, again, 7 per reel. You got 3 reels in most sets. They would come in different varieties. Sometimes it's single reels. Most of them were done in reels of 3 sets. And they actually ended up, if you remember the old Henry Fonda ads where he's talking about talking Viewmasters, they ended up with a system where they could have a narration that would go along with it. But you would get your packet of slides or disc, and on the back with the description of what we're going to see in it. So again, 7 pictures on each particular reel. Here you can see.
Excuse me, Bill.
Yes.
Can you go to a more full screen?
Okay, are you not seeing it full screen?
Well, I'm seeing all the edges of it. I think
yeah.
before. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. So down below, you can see that this is packet number A949, and somebody has written on there H23. That's because they took a lot of these reels and issued them over time with varying scenes on them. So as the years would go by, and they would take out an exhibit, they would add an exhibit, or for some reasons we've never figured out, just like with some of the World's Fair slides, they would reissue them. So there's actually a guide to Viewmasters and their variations over the year. And this is, again, the H23 version of the A949 reels. So some people have a packet that will look like, say, hey, I've got an A949. How come Bill's showing different pictures? It's because they do have variations in them. So I'm going to jump over here to the first one. And on this particular one, sometimes they are totally different. Like, so the A949 series is Adventureland. Well, sometimes you'll get into Tomorrowland and you have things that are totally different sets for Tomorrowland. And it's not just variations between the things, they're totally different sets. So we're going to start with, here we go. Let me put my glasses on. Again, some of these are sharper than others. This one's not a particularly sharp one, and they're blown up a lot. The problem, again, a lot of these things were mass produced, and the quality control gets to be, or shall we say, iffy on some of them. So sharp focus, not necessarily the best thing on some. So we're going to be seeing some very good 3D effects, and we're going to be seeing some very lousy 3D effects, but that's the way of consumer products. So we're going to start with Adventureland only because I'm working A through whatever, A through W, and the way these are on the computer. And again, this is amazing that you get a nice 3D effect, but they actually sold it this blurry. When I first got it this way, I looked at it and said, oh, it must have been a problem with the scanning or what I did. And when I hold up the reel, unfortunately, it's a blurry shot. So again, I should start with the better shot, but I'm starting with the A, so we're stuck with it. The Swiss Family Treehouse, up in the top looking down. And we're going to see the same shot again on another reel. And that's the thing that's interesting. Sometimes they do end up on other reels. And this shot here, which is not real good, looks much better in another shot, another set. The drums that you heard outside, there's a recording and all these figures of people pounding on wooden drums or gongs. Jose from the Enchanted Tiki Bird show, and more of his singing friends there in the Tiki Bird itself. Let me hope the next reel is a little bit better. So that's the first reel, your first set of 7 that you would get. If you wanted to see, let me just go back here 1 second. What I also did was on these, I had gone through and just done the flat images, and you can see how they look again without the 3D effect. And again, the same blurry sort of views. They do look slightly sharper in some cases because you're not getting the anaglyph effect that makes the images a little on the blurry side. But again, from a photography point of view, nothing here to write home about. So let's jump into the second reel. Now we're getting a little bit more of a stereo effect here. So the jungle boat leaves dock. And again, a lot of these were done from the early days of Disney World. And it's interesting to see the difference from the early days of Disney World and the early days of Disneyland, because the vegetation was so much more richer and lush when Disney World opened than when Disneyland opened. So think, you know, because they have so many palm trees and the climate's better for it, and they also had more time to plan for it. Disney World had years to be built. Disneyland had 1 year. That by the time they opened, you weren't looking at the usual dirt burns and bare hills that you see in the Disneyland shots. This is again an example of one of the shots that looks like a perfectly good section, a picture of a snake. For some reason, they went off and they redid it with a different shot of a snake. I don't know if the first snake wanted royalties or something. What's also interesting is a lot of these shots are the same ones that were used on the Disneyland postcards or the Disneyland souvenir slides at the time. And I don't know if they were shot originally in 3D or if they just tried to gimmick and make them into 3D, which is a process you can do. As Dave Bossert showed us last week, you can simulate 3D. But it's interesting to see how many of the Disney postcard views show up in the Viewmaster series that I had previously only known for the flat images. Pride Rock. And again, before they changed the narration that the lions are guarding the sleeping zebra. The politically correct things they do these days. And the Trop Safari. What's kind of interesting is one of the things that's fun about these is they give us views that you don't see as a tourist, because we always see the other side of this. You're out on the river down below. You're looking up at the you know, the figure stuck there in the rhino trying to come up with it. But unless you went off and bought an official Disney photo like this, you're never going to see. You know, we always joke about Disney, the Jungle Cruise that's seen the backside of water. So here you can see the backside of deer butts, I guess. And other things that do look like you would see out on the river if you were there as a tourist. And we'll get to our last reel here. Native dancers under a hut. This is the thing I got a kick out of. You know, you think about the Jungle Cruise being the same, but the rooms are so much more, you know, spectacular and large on the Disney World version because they had so much more land to work with. And again, another view that you couldn't get unless you were a Disney photographer or unless you jumped out of the boat and ran up there and got it yourself. And that's one of the things I enjoy about all these is the things you can't normally get. As we mentioned, the famous backside of water. Schweitzer Falls, named after that great humanitarian Dr. Falls. Elephants having a great old time. This one again will show up in, there's another set which is done more recently. Leslie mentioned to me in a message was one of her favorite sets, and we'll see this one in a more modern view of how much nicer it shows up from a 3D effect. And the elephant having a great bath there. People are just chatting online about that elephant in the back that people post that picture all the time and say, look how happy elephants are in the wild. We shouldn't put them in zoos. Not realizing, of course, this is not an elephant in the wild at all, but yes, he's having a great time having his bath there. And Trader Sam, I believe he's going away in the latest Jungle Cruise rehab. But again, he was having his 2-for-1 sale, two of his heads for yours. And I think that's all we have for the moment for Adventureland. Like I said, on some of these I have multiple sets. We're going to go into a more recent one. This is called Celebrating 50 Years of Disney Theme Parks. And this is kind of interesting. This is the picture I had here behind me. They shot the characters here in front of the castle. I still prefer the old Pooh with his big honey jar up on his head. You can start trying to date these by when they're done. We have Dale here and Chip and Dale in their Rescue Rangers garb from the Disney Afternoon, Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers series, and Mickey and Minnie. And again, this is one you wonder if it was really done in 3D or did they simulate it? But I think a number of these others, the 3D effect comes out really nice. So castles, fireworks, this is the sort of thing as a 3D photographer, you say, what were you really trying to think of? You see the pictures of the buildings over the left are kind of out the front. But when you're taking 3D pictures of something as far away as the castle, it's very, very hard to get a 3D effect, particularly in a very small image like this one. Out in front of the train station, we can't see the population sign quite there, so can't quite tell what year it is. You look at the upper right, you can see a bunch of little, looks like dots or marks in it. That again mentioned how these things start to bubble, how they start ending up with defects in the plastic material used for the film images, and that makes it kind of frustrating to try to get your reels. So a lot of people will be advertising reels, and if you collect them, you want to see if they're mentioning bubbling or not. Space Mountain. The beloved by some and hated by others, Giant Sorcerer's Wand over at Epcot. It was supposed to go in, I think, for a year and ended up staying for over a decade. Since gone now. I thought it was kind of a neat effect myself, but there are a number of purists that were absolutely up in arms about it. And again, we can start seeing that this is more modern than a lot of the others because we're looking at the test track out here. And then we don't have him here with us today, but my friend Paul Osterhout did this pyramid for the Mexico Pavilion. And I don't think when Paul worked on it, he ever thought that people would be sitting at the restaurant and get drunk and then decide it would be really fun to go climb the pyramid. But people have decided to go climb the pyramid. So it's a fun of operating a park with alcoholic beverages. Okay, so that's the first reel, and then we'll go to reel B. So we're over at the Disney MGM Studios, as it was known then. Today, I guess it's the Disney Hollywood Studios, and Mickey and Minnie are showing up for a night in the town. You wonder how many costumes Mickey has had over the years. He's certainly the best dressed mouse in America. Hollywood Tower. I don't know, is Florida, is that still the Twilight Zone, or they've not done a overlay for it for Guardians, have they? I think it's still the Twilight Zone. Fantasmic, Mickey coming out and lighting up the world. It's funny, just yesterday, Dave Snyder, who used to work with me at WED, called up when we were just talking about a variety of things, and he asked if I ever wrote on, quote, the mouse. And this was Walt's airplane, and you can see that had the Disney World, Disneyland logos on it. And this was the plane that Walt used for years, a Gulfstream II, and they were looking at actually thinking about getting a jet when he died, never did. But this was a real adventure. I don't know if any of my other WED friends, anybody else ride on the mouse? It was really a real kick. I was telling Dave yesterday, we were taking a trip. I went to Disney World about every 2-3 months. And I usually flew commercial. And one day they said, hey, the mouse is flying down. Meet your schedule. Do you want to ride on it? And I said, yeah, that sounds like it'd be really fun. So we went out and picked up the plane out here in California. It was either Burbank or Van Nuys. I don't remember where we were going out of. But our first stop was no less than John Wayne Airport down in Orange County, making a full hop of 70 miles. That's because it was a guy that was the rock guru for Disney, made all the rocks for things like Big Thunder, which they were working on at the time. And this guy had come out of retirement to help build rocks, but he didn't want to drive all the way up to the valley to get on the plane. And Disney valued him so much, they detoured the plane down to Orange County just to pick him up. When we got on the plane, you could sit anywhere you wanted. It was really nice seating. You could sit anywhere except Walt's chair, which had a reserve sign and a little sash across it that you weren't supposed to sit in Walt's chair. And I thought that was nice that they were keeping Walt's memory alive and honoring and all that. Well, when we got down to Orange County, they took the little sign off and let the rock guy sit in Walt's chair because that's how valuable he was. So it was a real fun trip. You guys from WED maybe remember Brian Ashcraft, and his wife was normally the flight attendant for the plane at that point in time. And she was sick that day and couldn't make it. And we had the plane's mechanic come with us. And he was I guess you could say a grumpy old sort, not at all happy. When he passed out the box lunches, he almost threw them to us. But we did not mind him being on board because when the onboard toilet jammed up, it was great to have an onboard mechanic that would stop it for you. But the mouse was great fun and is down now sitting in the boneyard at Disney World. We're over at Animal Kingdom and kind of a nice 3D effect of all the flamingos in front and the tourists coming through making their perilous river crossing there. The Tree of Life out at Animal Kingdom. Again, this is one where the 3D effect seems kind of lost. Dinosaur, one of the shows over at Animal Kingdom. Go back in time and visit the dinosaurs and see if they follow you home. And we have one more from this particular set, Real C. And we're going to go and take a look at some of the other facilities out at the property. We get to go and see Blizzard Beach water park. And I don't know if I've ever been to Blizzard Beach. We've been to others. Typhoon Lagoon, I got a kick out of. And this, again, I thought was a nice example of 3D. You have the boat, you know, perched up there on the mountain and down below, excuse me, people in the giant wave pool. So great fun. All-Star, the baseball field at the All-Star Resort. And another picture of the hotel. I've never stayed in this particular one. I wonder if it was sponsored by Coca-Cola. Look in the back there. And we take a quick visit to the Contemporary Resort. And we're over at the lodge at the Animal Kingdom and watching the guys are going off. The Grand Floridian. And if we get another one coming up, we'll see the Polynesian in some detail. So that's celebrating 50 years of Disney theme parks. And we're going to go to Fantasyland. Fantasyland, we actually have two different sets. This is the, for those keeping score, the A948 set. And we start going back again. A lot of these were done in the early days of the park. So there's no partner statue. There's a variety of things that have changed over the years. And it's kind of fun to see some of the things. But we'll see the swan boats in a few moments, things like that. So we have Snow White and a couple of the dwarfs and the Pearly Band in the back. Hard to think when you think about this little girl in this picture, you know, looking at it and realize this thing was taken 50 years ago. So, you know, everybody grows up, don't they? The beautiful mural within the castle. Again, not my first choice of a 3D view, but, you know, I guess you can see a little bit of the effect in the upper left. Looking out towards the carousel, the long vanished skyway there. Now in this particular one, it looks to me like the 3D image is a little off. I'm seeing the red image way off to the side. Again, I did these with a program. I need to go back and try to tweak some of them by hand, but we hopefully not scare anybody with the evil witch. Or Mr. Toad. I get a kick when you go visit the archives when they redid the Toad ride. One of the little devils with the pitchfork is sitting up on top of a file cabinet in the back room at the archives. So great fun. And Dumbo flying around. Okay, so that's that reel. And come on, here we go. And again, things that are sadly gone these days. The Mickey Mouse review, I thought it was a great show. I think it had the largest number of AA figures for any show in it. And it was great from my point of view. From the maintenance point of view, it wasn't. Went over to Tokyo Disneyland. We mentioned we did the talk there, how it lasted a number of years and it finally wore out there. But it was a great show. Some of these figures are still with us. You can still see these guys down in the park today in Mexico. And I'm going to knock your block clean off. So I'm sure now with everything going, these guys are going to be written to the Disney characters we will never see again. How to look at a early day of Fantasyland. The Skyway's up there. It's interesting. Some of the pictures and some of the sets, the streets are just about deserted. And I think that's one of the reasons they reissued a number of them over time, was to make it look like more of a popular experience and not, oh, I don't need to go there because nobody goes there. It's like everybody goes there because everybody goes there. So it makes it a success. And we're inside Small World. We will not sing the song today. If you think about the song, I cannot help you with that. And we have one more for this particular set. And nice view of the castle on a nice day. Again, things that are vanished. I sure missed the submarine ride. And we even have ourselves a nice underwater 3D view. Again, you can tell how early this particular view is, not just because the Skyway's there, but because the teacups are outdoors. I think it was about 3 or 4 years after the park was open that they put a roof over this, because again, you know, as everybody knows, it rains almost every single day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the summer. And they started trying to put as many things as you can under cover. Somebody was just mentioning in the Vintage Disney World group on Facebook that they hadn't realized how few things at Disney World are actually outside exposed to the elements, that so many of the shows do have a roof or some type of feature, you know, cover over it. And going through Fantasyland. The carousel. Now, if you're smart and you're doing these things for Disney, you get pictures like this. You don't have to get a photo release or pay royalties to the people because you can't tell who they are. So very often in common with the pictures, the people are non-distinguishable. And nice nighttime views, a little twinkle lights in the trees. So that took us through one version of Fantasyland. Now this is a different set, the H25 set. And we're going to see some of the same pictures again and others slightly turned around. So again, they would reissue these things as the thing often got sold from one Viewmaster company to another. Sometimes they would reuse the same reels with different labeling. Other times they had to go and shoot all new pictures because the rights that the photographers had sold were to the first company. They didn't have transfer rights, so they would have to come out and issue a new reel with all new set photos. So this time we got all 7 of the dwarfs, no little girl this time. And again, sometimes they go and they use the same picture because, you know, whoever took this was probably a Disney photographer. They didn't have to worry about rights to the photographer. It's kind of fun. You see some of the characters in the park that you don't get to see a lot every day. So we have Robin Hood and the sheriff and King down below entertaining the kids. Another view of Dumbo. And again, you can see what I said. They took some of the pictures and started making the crowds look more filled out because, again, people like to go where everybody else goes because it's popular. So they started doing that more and more on some of these. And a nice view, again, from the Skyway looking down at Fantasyland. More back inside, once again, Small World. And again, some of the same pictures get reused because of the rights clearance on them. So if you end up buying these, you end up with a fair number of duplicates over time. And one of the stage shows in the garden area there, so you can see some clock description, whatever the theme of this particular show was. And then Goofy, Alice, and Mickey are coming out and doing a meet and greet with the the guests. And back up there on the stage. Looks like it might be Jasmine over there to the right. So again, might be able to start dating some of these over time. There's the Winnie the Pooh I mentioned. I still prefer him with the honey pot on his head rather than the Pooh that they went with in the other shot, which was more out of the Adventures in Pooh Corner sort of styling. And again, people in the carousel, you don't have to pay royalties to them. So that shows how there's two totally different sets from Fantasyland, but they can be done with the, the same pictures in some cases. So we're going to go off to another land now. And this is an example I mentioned. This is a slide that shows up a lot on the Viewmaster, not the Viewmaster, the Canoe series slides. It also shows up on postcards. And I don't know if they shot this in 3D and then flattened it down for the others, or if they did any trick photography on here. But Chip and Dale out there visiting a guest. Disney has reused this picture all sorts of places, in guidebooks and everything. So some that they certainly have a great appreciation or like for. The Diamond Horseshoe Review. I think we pop inside. The cast from Disneyland came out to open up at Disney World. This is on the far right, Wally Bogan, I'm Gonna Grow a Beard days, when he was able to do that as an entertainer. And a great show, whether you saw it at one park or the other, great show. And I think Disney is still missing a huge bet by not staging it today. And Wally, for those that knew him, was just an absolutely wonderful guy. I mean, just super, super friendly, a great sense of humor. He was the editor for years of the Disneyland employee magazine that came out, and it did all sorts of spoofs and satires of things that happened in the park. And he does show up in some Disney live action things. I think Son of Flubber's in it, some other things. But just a super guy to sit down and talk over, and sort of people that really helped make the parks what they are. Then we're going to take a steam train ride around. Again, a character you don't see too often in the park, Jose Carioca. And he's got a gun belt on. We can't have that today, right? And looking across the river, we've got the Explorer canoes out there, another sadly gone thing. The keel boats are gone. They managed to tip one over by overloading it at Disneyland. It tipped over and dropped people in the river. So for safety measures, the keel boats are no longer with us. And Florida still has the Country Bear Jamboree. So we have some of the Song of the South characters out there entertaining kids. A friend of mine did the Brer Bear costume, and he swears it's the worst one of all that you could do from the weight load of it. Just a lot of padding and a lot of fiberglass. And then get to the next reel here. So we have Melvin, Buffy, and Max, or three talking heads from the Country Bear today out here in California. You can still see them if you're in the Winnie the Pooh ride. Look behind you, they're up on the wall, no longer talking, but great fun as they would heckle the performers in the show at the Country Bears. And speaking of the Country Bears, Gomer tinkling away on his piano. The Three Bear Rugs. Liver Lips McGraw. When I'm scaring myself is actually know the names of these things. Teddy Bear, Swinging Teddy Bear. And of course, Big Al. So I do miss the Country Bears. Every time we get down to Florida, we have to go see the Country Bears. But we out here had several overlays of it for a Christmas vacation and a summer vacation. I don't think they've ever introduced those to Florida, so it's something to miss. So the Davy Crockett canoe ride, which is great fun. If you're down working in Disney World, and it gets busy at Easter time, even if you're a studio employee, they'll tell you have to go cross-utilize out in the park and help operate the park. And I thought I could get away. Oh, I've got long hair. You're not going to put me out in the park. No, I'm going to put you in the park and put one of the Davy Crockett canoe hats. And that will hide the hair that touches your ears. And then you realize, I think I may have mentioned it before, the guests always start very enthusiastically paddling in their canoe and they're having a great time. And then when they get about a quarter of the way around that river in the summer heat and humidity, they decide, I'm going to sit and go for the ride. So that is not the ride that you want to spend too many hours working if you don't have to. Then we have our peaceful Indian village. Oh, and this is interesting. It looks like there's a giant turkey flying off to the left side. No, that's a defect in one of the left and right reels that was in there that when the computer combined them, it didn't take that out. I have to go back and take that out of either the left or right, whatever it's in, and then put it back together. But when I first saw this, I thought, what the hell is that flying through the air? And realized it's not flying, it's purely dirt. And again, the birth of May going by the swamp shack out there. The cabin out there on the island. Happy paddlers, and they're going by the cave where you can hear all the pirates from Davy Crockett and the river pirates. All the pirates are in there having a great time partying it up. This is a father and son combination that the fellow on the right was a well-known banjo player, did a lot of stuff in Dixieland bands and that. And he and his son would come out and entertain. And again, we'll see them a little bit later when we get to Liberty Square. Very, very popular. And he shows up in a lot of the Disney pictures. Souvenir slides out on Main Street he's playing, in Liberty Square he's playing, out here in the riverboat. So they were very well known and out there for all sorts of years. And let's see. So that's one version of Frontierland. Now we're going to go see another version of Frontierland. So again, we have some of the different characters in the same spot before. We saw Chip and Dale. Excuse me. Now we see these guys. Baloo. And again, the same pictures get used at times. Land on the raft to the island. I'm just going through these sort of quickly because we've seen them. And now this is a more modern set you can see because we've jumped up to Big Thunder and we can see what the Rock Man was able to do when he got there from Orange County. Everybody in the train looking over at the photographer makes you think whether or not they just stopped the train so they could get a nice shot, not blurred in motion, so they didn't have to worry about bringing tons of lights into the attraction. And they went out of their way to get some nice 3D effects with the barrel in front, and you can see the guys are going off, two of them as a matter of fact. They were really big on this particular reel of going after Big Thunder shots. So that's the end of that one. Let me just put my bottle of water down so I don't spill it here in my computer and have a very bad day. We'll finish Frontierland and we're going to go off, change of pace. We're going to hop over to Epcot now. Again, whoops, let me fix that back. These are done sort of alphabetically. So, Future World follows Frontierland, and here we are, but we're going to see some things that are no longer over in Epcot. That fountain was that giant sheets of plexiglass that were for the fountain there. I don't know how many millions of dollars people probably threw at that fountain. It was a curved surface going down, so your pennies that slide down into the water down below. But you know, people don't have enough money to spend at Disney. Let's go and throw it away at Disney. So great fun. This one I got a kick out of. Folks may remember if you first went into visit Epcot in the early days, one of the very first things you did was run into this section of the park and try to get to one of these terminals so you can connect to the World Key operators and make your dinner reservations. So it was an interactive kiosk where they had things playing. It was all done with Pioneer Laserdisc, and you could have you know, guided tours of the place, but then you could hit a button and a live operator would pop up and you ask you where you wanted to go. And you say, I want to make reservations for Germany at 7 o'clock, and you would get your reservation. So often huge lines. There were also other kiosks out further into the park that after a while, if you got to know that, don't stop here first, run past them down to the intersection of you know, the two sections of Epcot and try to use one of those kiosks. But people were very, very busy trying to make dinner reservations, which was the only way to do it at the time. Pavilions that, of course, are completely gone. Horizons here, all torn down and replaced. Different views of dining area there. Someday I got to dig out my own 3D photos I took. I've never scanned them of taking the visits down there. This is inside Communicore. When it first opened, there were all sorts of these silly little things trying to talk about data and information flow. And you know, I think this is supposed to be talking about population growth, but the numbers just went in some random pattern. This one people get a real kick out of. Down below, this was the computer center, and you had a show going on about the Studer Computer Review. And this little character would come out and dance across the consoles. And, you know, the people down below, of course, didn't see it. But he, just like the same way the effect is done with the Ghost in the Haunted Mansion, the people sitting here in the computer show would see him dance from console to console and telling you how everything is working. All those consoles in the back were all painted in Sperry Unisys colors because Sperry Unisys was the sponsor of it. They were just facades. The real stuff that ran all the audio animatronic shows was Disney built and designed and sitting inside those cabinets. Down on this attraction, there was a line on the floor that told you when you were on show and not on show. And they made sure you knew if you were, you know, going to be having a bad day and you wanted to throw something, you didn't throw it online. Or if you had to scratch yourself in some spot you didn't want to be seen, you walked on the other side of the line. So just the same thing when they did the animation studio you know, tours, you had the on-stage and off-stage area with a big demarcation line. So, but it was fun to go and have people told how it all worked, and kind of a fun show that they did. Again, back in Communicore, energy exchange, talking about how we change dinosaurs into oil and oil into turning turbines and turn electric power, all that sort of thing. And more stuff in here about energy and the world and how it all goes around. A lot of these things were really kind of neat and kind of fun to work on. We're off to the Energy Pavilion. A lot of these figures will look very familiar because they're the same ones that we saw back at the 64, 65 World's Fair, or now at Primeval World at Disneyland. They got repurposed so we could have the same battles occurring in the Energy Pavilion. If you take the train ride through Disneyland today and you look over, you'll see the same guy sitting there menacing the train at Disneyland. And for years, he menaced the folks down at Energy. And again, we're off now to the Transportation Pavilion, the World of Motion, General Motors. This was an example of how they did models of wind tunnel testing. And they had all sorts of different things telling you how they were designing cars. You could go off into the showroom, see prototype cars, just like we had prototype cars at the World's Fair. These were plastic models of things that were to be. They also did have the latest GM models, and you could get a brochure of that year's General Motors cars to take home with you. And we're hopping again. Interesting that this is a World Showcase tour. Now all of a sudden we're for some reason seeing Big Thunder. This was kind of a fun show, Bird and Robot. Bird is up there with his cigar, and he would crack all these horrible jokes, and the robot down below is doing all the work. In this particular case, the robot has opened his valise, and he's pulled up a big sign asking for applause. You can actually find the video of the show on YouTube, and it's kind of fun to see it again. And it was an example of this was a real industrial robot used for doing things, but how Disney had repurposed it as a show element. And transportation, again, great fun talking about people coming across the sea and sea monsters and all the rest of it. The 3D effect is not working too well on Mona Lisa here, but it's all part of Spaceship Earth, I believe. Transportation again. It was so much fun when this was all built out here at the Tahunga facility, seeing all these sets built and staged, and getting the bugs worked out of them, and then things taken down to Florida to be put in there. Oops, hang on here 1 second. Okay, I have to go get some more. So I think that's it for Future World and tour number 1. Now we're going to go to Future World Tour number 2. So again, we're taking our day starting as we get to the ticket booths of World Show, Epcot rather, we're walking in. The fountain I mentioned earlier is really a great design. Fountain inside. The VIP lounge, the lights visible there through the in the back for Spaceship Earth. And again, one of the displays inside, I mentioned earlier, one of my jobs at Disney was to go through all these displays and make sure none of the programmers had hid anything naughty in them. So it was looking at line after line after line of code on these things to make sure there were no nude ladies hidden in them like they hid in the Rescuers movie. But here's a display telling us all about the amazing microchip. What was fun was we had a Imagineering reunion a few years ago, celebrating the opening of Epcot, and Debbie, one of our friends that worked at it, Debbie Del Mar, actually came up with some of the people that had done some of the programming. They still had copies of it. We were able to run some of these programs again, which is harder than you think to find computers that can actually run some of these old programs. You try to pop one of these things on your modern computer today, and it's just going to choke. So we actually had some of these that were running in a room that you could go back and then revisit, design your own roller coaster and some of the other things. But it's kind of odd to think about how this stuff now, like I said, even if I gave you a copy of it, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it unless you spent a lot of time and effort to get it to run. And the age of information. Back outside looking across here over at the Imagination Pavilion. And a typical 3D shot with the big finger pointing right at you, the Dreamfinder and Figment. And Journey in Imagination at dusk. This was an interesting project. One of those things, a great idea that unfortunately didn't work. The idea was when you walked into sensor, it would grab a color, and as you ran through the tube, it would the color would follow you. So it had all sorts of sensor effects and everything. Well, that's great if you're the one person walking through it. But if you have 2 people walking and one person walks faster than another, or somebody goes backwards or forward, the poor computers had a hard time figuring out how they would work the sensor effect. So over time, it just became the tunnel of flashing colored lights with no particular meaning or pattern to them. This is another one. The idea here was you could, and this particular one, it's really hard to see. You could do things and looking at imagination. There were sensors, you could change patterns in it by looking at it. It's totally lost in this particular picture, which has, to me, no 3D value whatsoever. Whoops. Now we're in the ride. Figment is trying to hold back all the monsters and the things that come in your imagination in the middle of the night with nightmares. And part of the dream catchers effects of grabbing your dreams and storing them away. In the Land Pavilion, we're going to take a look inside. During the building of Epcot, this was one of the first areas finished and became sort of the employee cafeteria. So you could go down and eat in all the places that were going to be snack bars for the future. So spent a lot of time over eating at the various places you can see in the background there. So if you have to have an employee cafeteria, that was a nice one to have. Lots of different options. And again, a kind of nice 3D effect with our little guys up here in the front. And the very popular shot of 3D shot of people growing giant squashes. Again, if you take the tour through the Land Pavilion, you can get this view. Otherwise, you can only get it by buying a shot, or you can see it from the other side from the boats. This one does not have much 3D effect with the glasses. It doesn't have much 3D effect in real life, but this was all tinted red as you went through it because of the lights they were using for the fish they were growing in these ponds. So if you try to look at this in 3D, you're probably not having a great deal of luck. I know I'm not having any luck. So we're at a future world. Let's go back here and see where we get to next. Okay. And we're at Liberty Square. So we're back over to the Magic Kingdom. It's funny, I don't remember these flagpoles, what flags they are, or what years they were representing, but they do show up in a couple different shots. So it's funny how you think you know a place and you've been there a million times. For whatever reason, this little plaza and these 4 flagpoles I never paid any attention to. Things that we don't have with us anymore, they cut back so much in the street entertainment budget, plus the streets are so crowded, it's hard to get these things through. But the Sons of Liberty would come marching through the streets. They would do a great ceremony here. We have the Sons of Liberty singers outside of Liberty Tavern. Again, street entertainment that was very popular in the past years. And here the Sons of Liberty are marching up, and they're going to be doing their ceremony, inducting a son and daughter of Liberty into the ranks. And just outside the Hall of Presidents, jump over to the next one in a second. So I mentioned the Hall of Presidents. We have some of the hostesses outside, and we're going to go in and visit the presidents in a moment. But first, we'll stop and get a snack or some popcorn. I think those costumes they were wearing were probably one of the ugliest costumes I've seen. And to me, they looked like they were designed by the person that designs the costumes for the hot dog on a stick stands in your local mall. I mean, they're just garish. I mentioned the banjo players. Again, they do show up all over the place in Disney history. And you could put yourself in the stocks for the pillory. You're going to ride on the riverboat. Again, this is a real early shot. People look at it, you can date it. The trees are still real small. The major thing that shows you, besides the fact that it has the keelboat on it, the big things behind the keelboat is today would be Aunt Polly's restaurant out on the island, which was not there at all at that point in time. Again, not much 3D to that particular one. And I believe we have one more here. So we're going to go visit the Haunted Mansion. Again, things have changed over time. This entry walkway now has a covered area. As mentioned earlier, more and more effort to keep people both out of the Florida sun and out of the Florida rain. And inside, we still see things haven't changed too much. Madame Leota is with us. Back then, she sat on the table. Now she's in a ball that floats up and around in the air. So always amping up the special effects and keeping people guessing on exactly how they do that. And looking down at the table with the ghosts, and up there in the chandelier and hanging around, having a great old time. Our trusty organ player. Going through our graveyard. And we have one more thing to go through. So again, this was the set for those keeping score at home, set A9503 or A9, well, whatever. So, but we had some others here. They did another set here, the M8 set. And again, totally different pictures from some of these. You can see up in the clouds some of the bubbling effect that I mentioned, but the town crier out here ringing his bell, hear ye, hear ye. A different view of the stocks. Some of the characters entertaining, the Hall of Presidents in the background. I thought the 3D effect in this one came out very nice. Again, over time, they happen to improve it. So I think on some of these, they actually shot them in 3D as opposed to monkey them for 3D. And again, the banjo players show up a lot. Not the shot I would use myself to try to sell the Hall of Presidents, but nice view of the Liberty Tree in front of us and the hall behind it. And we hop in and take a look at a few of the presidents. That's a nice one, giving you an idea of just how big it is and, you know, again, some nice 3D effect. And Abe getting ready for his big speech. And you can see this is a later slide. Not only is the 3D better, but now Aunt Polly's has been built out there on the island. Again, those flagpoles, which I may be the flags that flew over Florida. Maybe somebody can fill us in or has already put that in the chat. Deja vu, huh? And that should end us at Liberty Square. We're getting near the end. So let me hop back up after Liberty Square. Who do we have next? We start now where we probably should start coming into the park and see Main Street, USA. So we haven't even gotten to Main Street yet. We're out on the waterways heading over, and so many things have changed. The paddle wheel steamboat is no longer with us. I imagine they're still probably renting sailboats out on the lake. I know you can't swim in it anymore. But we're coming across on one of the water launches of the ferry boats or something, and seeing it coming along. Again, not much 3D effect, and you wonder how they picked some of these pictures they did. Things like a picture like this would not look much different at all today if you went out there. The monorails have been modernized a bit, but looks very familiar today, so many years later. So we're coming down off the monorail station, getting ready to go see Mickey and his friends. One of the many varied floral Mickey designs they've used over the years. And Mickey greeting everybody. And we're finally into the park and looking down Main Street from the train station. Just, again, things wouldn't change much if you were looking at it today. The trees may have changed or things would look a bit different, but very, very unchanged from that point of view. So let me go to the next one here and we'll go further down Main Street. And City Hall. Whoops. The Dapper Dans. It's interesting, I mentioned yesterday on Vintage Walt Disney World on Facebook, I was doing a slide. I posted the cover reel for this particular thing. And Bella said, oh, when you get to it, that's me, Randy Morris, playing the piano. So I don't know if Randy joined us today, but it's nice. We can put a name to it. And he's got a way to commemorate his time working down there at Disney World on the piano bicycle. The Keystone Cops entertaining. And we have more Main Street coming up. Crystal Palace at night, again for World's Fair aficionados. A big link to the first big World's Fair in London was at the Crystal Palace, so it's a nice nod back to those days here. You will not see the street this empty these days, would we, if we went back there today? Mickey leading the band. I asked once whatever happened to the mace that's in his hand, and it's evidently on proud, not display, but in proud possession of the Disney archives. And we have characters dancing down the street from the Aristocats. So this probably dates the movie, the slide re-release of that particular movie, and the Pearly Band entertaining out there. Keystone Cop security host. We end our visit to Main Street, as many people do, with one last look back as we go home at night. So we have just a few more. This was a general catch-all set that they did called the Vacation Kingdom. I got a kick out of this because I went to some of the other hotels in that. So we have a nice overhead view of the Poly as it existed back then. If you look over at the 9 o'clock position on this, that's the fabled wave machine, where Dick Nunis was intent on having waves that would come across the lagoon and let people actually go surfing. When they cranked it up, it washed away the beach at the Polynesian. They would put the beach back. They would make some changes. They would crank it up. It would wash away the beach. So there's a picture in one of the employee newsletters of Dick actually surfing out there in front of it. But we have yet to find any video of or film footage of that thing actually working. But I get a lot of requests from people. Do you have any pictures of the wave machine? It was one of Disney's, well, Disneyland had failures like the Phantom boats, but this was about the biggest failure at Disney World. And it cost an absolute fortune to build that entire island to hold a wave machine that would wash away the beach. So you will not see the wave machine in very many pictures, and this happened to catch a nice view of it. By this point in time, it was no longer in operation. By the time Space Mountain was built, the wave machine was a relic, and you can still see some little itty-bitty remnants of it on the shoreline, but after a while it got dismantled and hauled away. So we're taking more of a look around the Poly, the pool area here, and having a busy day on the beach in the back. And I absolutely, as much as I like the Contemporary, I worked at the Contemporary, stayed at the Contemporary. I spent many, many hours of my life at the Contemporary. I loved the Poly. The grounds were nice, and the lobby here was spectacular. You went in, it had a certain smell to it because of all the tropical plants and the water running through it, and you had some birds in there. You can see Trader Jack's grog hut upstairs in the background. But I thought the Poly lobby was just spectacularly done with a South Seas impact and effect that you walk into it. And they had a big luau show out back. So when you went to it, you got a lei. They were genuine leis made of genuine plastic. And we have the Tahitian dancers and performers getting ready to perform for the night. We're over at the golf resort, which is now Shades of Green, the military's owned and operated spot for the military members. Goofy's out ready to hit. And if you look at his club, I think he's got a challenge ahead of him. Having done a character for many times, I cannot imagine what it would be like doing a character out on water skis. I'm also a terrible water skier, so that's probably why my fear of doing this would know that I would be dead at the bottom of the lake if I ever tried it, but Donald's out there having a good old time. Old look of the Contemporary. I don't think I ever, in all my years there, ever saw that guard booth ever used for anything. So it looks nice in a picture. And we go inside. Again, this has changed dramatically. The whole dining area and everything down below looks different. But Mary Blair's wonderful mural is still there. The contemporary here still looks nice because they haven't ruined it by sticking the timeshare building off to the right-hand side. And if I look real close, I can see my old office in the background there. Nighttime shot. Some of the fun topiary figures that you see around property. And the electrical water pageant. A lot of folks out here in the West Coast may not realize that our famous and loved electrical light parade down Main Street actually started as an electrical pageant out on the lake, where each of these guys were on floats, brought out into the lake. They played same sort of synthesized music and had them going at night. So it was really popular. You had the dolphins would jump from float to float. This became a real success, and then they translated it into the electrical light parade. Take a look at an area that's totally wiped off the face of the earth, River Country, which to me was still the best of the Disney water theme parks. I really liked at the end of the day to go over to River Country, or on my day off, go over there and have a great time. So you had some slides off into a swimming pool. You had the rapids here. Looks like the one guy is trying to stand up on that raft and not having a great deal of success with it. But this was just an amazing amount of fun and so novel and new when Disney introduced. I mean, today, all sorts of places, every theme park seems to have a, water thing you can go through. This was real cutting edge stuff for Disney to build this at this point in time. And sad that it's no longer with us. The old swimming hole, you're dropping off into in there, and everybody out floating around and having a great time. You could go up there in the center there, you could go up and slide on a rope and drop yourself into the lake. And right nearby, just further down the lake, you had a nature preserve. You had all the birds out there and this walkway through the cypress trees. At night, we're over at Fort Wilderness. They did a really nice dinner campfire show where they would come out and sing songs. They'd show movies. The chipmunks would come out in Legion making s'mores for a snack. Great fun. Pioneer Hall review, the Hoop-de-Doo review. Again, a show I really enjoyed, and eaten quite a bit of fried chicken there over the years. So let me hop back out of here. So that's the Vacation Kingdom collection. And we have two more coming up, so bear with me. We're going to take a look over here real quick. And this is a real quick one for Tomorrowland. This particular one, the bubbling effect is fairly noticeable in some of the shots, but the entrance pylons into the original Tomorrowland. Loved it when the fountains were going and shooting down water at high velocity. Again, a nice effect of 3D. Had Mission to Mars over there. We can go see America the Beautiful, sponsored, of course, by Monsanto. The Wedway People Mover is still there today. Matter of fact, somebody was just posting a picture. It wasn't open, I guess, at first when they opened up Disney World after the virus, but it's open now. And he was posting pictures, just thrilled to be out running on it. Mr. Johnson is taking us a trip on mission control down there. The Astro Jets. Nice view of the Astro Jets. The Grand Prix Raceway, one attraction I'm glad I never had to work on because all the gas exhaust I think would get to me very much after a while. And the Skyway overhead. And we have one more set, so thanks for bearing with me. We're going to end it with a trip to World Showcase Tour number 3. I don't evidently have World Showcase Tours 1 and 2, so we're going to just stick with this. We're going to go over to France, sit at our sidewalk cafe and have a nice time. Again, 3D effect, you got to have the mind throwing his hand out to the camera. One of the French style signboards located out there. Strolling musicians. Dusk and poor 3D. Again, poor 3D. These do not look even particularly good, even in the viewer. And we're off to merry old England now. This set of pictures that I was looking at reminds me of how disappointed I was in not having shows in each part of Epcot. because everything done out here has to be done for street performers, and that, you know, no rides, no shows. So when you get to buy your souvenir pictures, you get to buy souvenir pictures of gift shops. You know, it's just a bit disappointing, but some nice views of the shops in England. And again, street performance going on being the big way they were entertaining people. And we're off to Canada. The recreation of Victoria Gardens. Yet another 3D spectacular slide of a gift shop. Because again, Canada has a wonderful movie, kind of hard to sell that in 3D. And a waterfall and walkway out there. Canada at night. And Canada at night ends it for Disney World and Vintage Viewmasters. So everybody can take their glasses back off. And I appreciate folks sticking with us. I'm going to look through the comments, but if people have particular things they would like to share, talk about or chat, feel free. You should be able to unmute yourselves. So if anybody would like to wave their hand or start or anything, let me know. You can take your glasses off now if you haven't. Oh, and by the way, where's Joey? Is Joey still with us? Did we lose Joey?
I'm here.
Oh, put your glasses back on for the people that didn't see them.
They're Hello Kitty glasses. That's all we had.
He asked yesterday if he could wear them because all he was could find. And I said, yes, you can, but be prepared to be heckled. So I had to make sure I heckled him. So just devoted he is to wear his Hello Kitty glasses.
Yeah, that's all we had. So
they look great. But everybody else. So any other thoughts here? I'm just reading through. Yes, Viewmasters, they're basically, they stopped making them for a while totally. They stopped the scenic sets of things like Okefenokee Swamp, but they were making a big line of them of all the Disney and other ones, because you get a lot of the Disney ones, but they would use clay figures or models, and they could really give the 3D effect because they would, position the models. So they stopped making those. So they're doing mostly licensing deals. They actually did for a while, and I tried doing it. They had a virtual 3D experience where you put an app on your phone and you could buy what they call an experience pack, and you could look at vintage Viewmaster things on your phone. They absolutely, totally overpriced it. Buying one vintage pack was enough and didn't do it. So that's dead. If you still have the app, it still works, but they stopped selling vintage packs or the app years ago. So Viewmasters are definitely a thing of the past, but like I said, for me, it's a great chance. You know, if you do have them and you look at them, some of the 3D effect can be absolutely, wonderful. Great. Airbar said Viewmaster was once my only way to visit Disneyland. Same for me. You know, you live back east, and Disneyland was a dream for the future. But in the meantime, you could look at it and go view it. Just reading through here. My introduction to Disneyland was from a 3-reel Viewmaster set in the mid-50s. I never visited until the 70s. Same with me. Yeah, Derek G said those blurry shots must be manufacturing defects. The originals would not be that bad. And that's right. Just like with the Panaview series of the 64 World's Fair, at times you get them and you have two of them. You look side by side and you go, this one is nicely framed and well done. This one, they went off to the side. This one's filthy. This one's blurry. But that's what they sold. They just didn't spend a lot of time or quality control on some of this stuff. A lot of these Disney World ones, who was a fellow, he's unfortunately deceased now, had bought all these and he wanted to get them digitized. So I digitized them all for him and then sent them back to him, and he's since passed on. I have to go and drag my own out and see if I happen to have a better set of manufactured ones from the ones that were blurry. Oh, Beth is following along in the Viewmasters, and the castle shot is clear in her set. So nice to know. It gives me something to look for to find a good set. Carolyn was just talking about the sing-along in the Tiki House last night. So did you sing the song when you saw the Tiki? No, good. Okay. Derek said they were shot.
Do they even do that anymore? I don't remember. Did they, Ken, when we were there last time, did they do it?
Not that I can remember, but
You didn't sing with the Tiki Birds?
Well, I don't remember if they asked us to do that or not, but yeah.
I don't think they did. Maybe if you wait in line at the beginning, they might have you do it, but I don't think we got stuck in the line.
Well, if you went down there and started singing, who's going to stop? And Jim Brown mentioned 3D using polarization is superior. Yeah, there's a way that you can do this with polarized glasses. They also have glasses that have an electromagnetic effect, basically flipping real fast eye to eye to do it. I don't have polarized glasses, and I didn't have the ability to do that. Again, I did this just as a lark a number of years ago to help a guy out. And then I started doing some of my own with the Disneyland ones. So anaglyphs are definitely not the ideal way to do 3D, but it's a very cost-effective way to do it. Bill's commentary is just like having the Viewmaster book read out loud to you, even though the package didn't have books. So the, I don't know if I've actually heard one of the talking Viewmasters. I hope they're not as sarcastic as I am. So yes, Beth mentioned the Magic Kingdom set came with a small book. That's really a neat thing about a lot of the Viewmasters, and it's often hard to find, but they would have a little book that would describe what each of the 7 scenes from each reel looked like. Now I'll show those, some of those, you're holding it up, but you have to hold it kind of like right in front of you. There it goes. It's hard with the virtual background. Yep, there's the book. I'll try to show some pages from one when I do the Disneyland one, and they would have a little line art inside showing you the pirates, and then they'd have a 2-3 paragraph description of what you're looking at. Okay. Oh, Chris Kelly worked on the Epcot 2001 on the ball. Well, I liked it. I thought it was a neat effect. Like I said, a lot of people, you know, I think they were dancing in the streets when they took it down because it wasn't original or something. But I thought it was a real neat effect. What did you do on it, Chris?
That was one of my first. That was my first Florida project. I was a project coordinator on there. So I did Future World. I did the ball and the Leave a Legacy and the pin trading and all that good stuff. I had a blast, total blast. That's
great. Yeah. Now the Leave a Legacy stuff, they've taken that out and redone that area. I understand.
Yes, yes, they have. And that, you know what, I'm okay with that. I always, and I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I always thought that it was kind of very funereal. It really, it did kind of, but it was a lot of fun. It was one of my first projects there in Florida. So good memories.
Yeah, didn't they just move it to the left? So it's not at the main entrance anymore, but it's off to the side, but it's still there?
They took out all the Leave a Legacy monuments. But
okay, I thought they moved them.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that they took them all down. But yeah, I know. But they were very happy to restore the original fountain element. That was nice. Yeah. But I also worked, when I was doing that, I also at one point worked on bringing Figment back to the Imagination Pavilion after he had been dead. So I feel good about that one.
Hey, well, we owe you a giant vote of thanks for it. You know, the pavilion without Figment makes no sense.
I know. It was, yeah. I swear when I went through the new version when they took Figment out, and I just couldn't believe what I experienced. But I was very happy to be part of bringing him back a little bit.
Well, it's interesting, you know, when you first opened it up, one of the things you had in there was a thing where you could do music, and you could basically put your hand, the one shot I said had no 3D value, the girl staring at something. You could make this musical performance by putting your hand over a disc and go up or down or back and forth. And we actually have done it with the sensors out of a Polaroid SX70 camera. And Disney bought all these SX70s and gutted them. So there were piles of dead cameras with the sensors gone. but it was the auto-focusing mechanism out of XF70s that would determine where your hand was in the position. But the thing became a problem because it was so popular and everybody stood there that the people, 3, 4 back in line, you would have an hour wait to get up there because there was no end to this. So we kept saying, we ought to put a timer in there, like you have 1 minute or 3 minutes, have a countdown or something. But oh no, it was great. All I could think was being a photographer, all the dead cameras as people were going and doing the music.
Well, I remember doing that as a civilian, quote unquote, before I worked for the company, because I went down to the Walt Disney World a lot in the 80s. And, it was, I remember playing on that and having, it was so much fun.
Oh, it's neat stuff. And again, great technology. How do you do it? You find something somebody else built and you repurpose it, right?
Absolutely. Or we had friends in special effects who say, how can I misuse this technology?
Yeah, well, thank God you've never quite misused the smell-alyzers. Okay. Derek said, I don't think VM ever reshot reels because they lost the rights. Most of the photogs were direct employees of Viewmaster. Could be. I understood that they had to change some of them, though, when they went from one manufacturer to another, that, they had some issues there. But again, it could be more Disney legal than everything else. That Greg Ehrbar mentioned the Fantasy Fair stage. That's where the Disney characters are dancing with the, the clock motif behind them. Carlos sent me a message about he's been a hot air balloonist. I wonder how many hot air balloons there are. It's a small world. So if anybody is in Florida, you have your mission set out to report back to Carlos in a future thing on how many hot air balloons you can get. Greg Ehrbar mentioned Wally Bogue was Steve Martin's mentor, and he was also several voices in the Tiki Room, including Jose. Yeah, you go through the park and you can hear Wally and this and Wally and that, and he was just very, very versatile. Beth has an interesting question. Has anybody ever used one of those services that converts your personal photos to a Viewmaster reel? No. I've got a bunch of 3D photos, and I got to think about doing that sometime. Oh, Greg, the annual Explorer, Canoe, or Casimir races. Yeah, those are great fun. I mean, you'd have to be at the park about 5 o'clock in the morning to do them, and race around and have a great time going around the river. So you put everything away before the first guest got there. But some of the people were very, very good, and I think some people were ringers. I think they practiced all year long, at the middle of the night or other times. And then those of us who were total amateurs would come down there, and it was a great way to get wet and get tired. But Glenn Barker, another guy we owe a vote of thanks. He mentioned here is your idea to put the heads in the Pooh ride. So tell us about that.
Oh, we had a production meeting, once a week or whenever, and I was in there with Bruce Gordon. I know you know Bruce. And I just thought, hey, why don't we pay homage to the old Bear Band show? And everybody loved the idea. I can't say I was the only one that had that idea, but I think I was first.
Oh, that's great.
So I love things like that. We had the Mighty Microscope in the original Star Wars or Star Tours ride.
Right.
When you crash through, you'd see that. That was from the Adventure Through Inner Space. And I mentioned on here, I put the organ from the Swiss Family Treehouse into the Tarzan Treehouse at the end of it.
Well, I thank you for keeping the legacies alive.
But I wanted to mention, if anybody's just getting into Viewmaster, I would highly recommend you get the viewer called a Model D. And that's the lighted one. It's heavier. It's got a focus knob on it. And you can get them. I just looked on eBay. They're selling for around $60 or $70. And you can put an LED bulb in it. And that's the best viewer ever made, I think.
Yeah, Chris has one of the cheaper non-electrical ones, but that's what the most of us would look at. And actually, I ought to drag it out. Somewhere I have the one that they did for the Disney pictures where you actually have a Viewmaster and has Mickey ears on it. So you
yeah.
And you've got Mickey ears.
This is a This was one that my boyfriend just handed me that they just recently did with family photos to make them 3D. I don't know. Is this common?
Well, I got serious enough that I bought back in the 50s, they made a personal camera that you could put regular film in, and it would shoot a roll of 3D Viewmaster size pictures. And then when you got to the end of the roll, you turned a knob in the front, it would rack the thing down, and you'd go back the other way. So you ended up with this whole, there's probably about 6 or 7 reels worth of pictures. Then you had to get a cutter, and you put the film in that, and you punched out these little chips, and you buy the empty reels, and then you could stick them in. And I've done over 100 of those. And then I moved on to the twin rig 35 millimeter, which I talked about last week. And the fun thing there is when we were doing Tarzan Treehouse, 2 other guys had these cameras and were doing this. One was Tony Baxter, who's a Disney legend now, and the other was Bruce Gordon. So I shot, and in order to make duplicate rolls, you just shot 3 of the same thing everywhere. And I made them signed and numbered rolls of the building of the Swiss Family Treehouse. So that ought to go for something on eBay.
Show them to us someday.
Yeah, in fact, all that stuff I just gave to my brother-in-law, and he's selling it all on eBay now. So I don't have any, I got too much stuff.
I think I know that feeling. Carol would agree.
But you can get all this. I don't know if you can still get film developed. I think they do, don't they? Except for the Kodachrome, they don't. But I was using the Fuji.
You know what's interesting is I think the one thing for the personal Viewmaster thing that people complain, the hardest thing to find is the film cutter that actually cuts out the little reels to mount in the cardboard slides.
Well, he's got mine on eBay right now. You can buy it for a couple of $100 if anybody wants one. And it works perfectly.
Just what I need.
Well, I go through these phases, you know, I get into something and I've shot over 100 reels and family and everything. What it was my love for the Monterey coast. And I wanted to be able to capture that and bring it home. And so I bought that, and then I went up to the bigger one, and I could sit there and feel like I was in Monterey. Then I bought a house up there, so I don't have to have that anymore.
Well, I don't think I'll be buying a house in Monterey, so maybe I'll buy your pictures.
Yeah. Well, the pictures aren't for sale, but the but the camera is.
I'm just reading through. Boy, we got a lot of comments in here in chats. I won't be able to hit every one of them today, but people can read them. And yeah, somebody mentioned all the Leave a Legacy are removed. I know people are bitching, like, you know, everybody always does about everything Disney changes, how they bought their Leave a Legacy, or, you know, they bought a brick out in front of the Magic Kingdom, and now they were ripping them all out. You know, that Disney wouldn't sell them to them, and just, you know, all stuff like that. I'm actually going to go through a bunch of these comments in the chat, a bunch of really interesting links in here that I'm very interested in digital 3D photography. I've not really pursued that. My daughter actually had a phone for a while that had a 3D camera in her phone, and it used some really weird, storage format that try to decode in these days is crazy weird. But I'd love to be able to take some great 3D digital pictures. So I'm going to go through this and appreciate your own, these things are in here. So appreciate it. Is there a Viewmaster almost as good as the Model D without a light? Any thoughts on that, Glenn? What view?
No, that's I would absolutely get the D. It's got a wider angle lens in it, so the pictures are bigger when you're looking in there. And, you know, because it's one picture for each eye, you're getting the best quality as opposed to the anaglyph where you've got that red and blue casting over it. Wayne is trying to say something.
Yeah, if you're just getting into Viewmaster, the thing to avoid is some of the later toy company, all plastic ones with plastic lenses. Some of the lenses were so terrible.
Yeah.
It would be child torture to give them to your kids.
Yeah, no, the D is Bakelite.
Right.
And it's all glass, and it's built, it just has this great feel. I feel like I should be selling them.
The earlier Bakelite ones without the lights are also quite good optically, but you have to search around for a window to point.
Well, that's the trouble with that. But this one, you just hold the back of it and it lights up. And like I said, you can get LED bulb for it, which is whiter and crisper and doesn't burn out on you. Holds a pair of D batteries.
Now I know what I'm going to be looking for on eBay after I get off this. Thank you.
I just checked, and there's a couple of them on there right now, next to my cutter.
Next to your cutter. Baron, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I knew I had it somewhere, and I just thought, I know exactly where it is. So I quickly went in there and grabbed it. This is my old Viewmaster from, I guess, early mid 60s. This was the one made by Sawyer's. And I think before Sawyer's had it was GFF or GFS, GF's, whoever it was, GF.
GAF.
Yeah, GAF. Thank you very much. So it was either Sawyer's first or was GAF first. I can't remember, but this is the one I've had. And then I thought I knew I had some reels here. I don't have any Disney, but I got Tom and Jerry.
It was Sawyer's first.
Was it Sawyer's first? Okay. I got Jack and the Beanstalk. I got Cinderella, Quebec City, Cape Cod and Plymouth, and The Night Before Christmas. Now these all date back. Well, that one says 1958, but I presume I got these in the early 60s when I was a young kid living in New Jersey. And I've had these, I still have these, but the other thing is, one of the things is, the 3D viewers you can go buy, even the Amazon, Google has the little cardboard box thing. The fact is, if you create your own 3D photos somehow, and you just merge them into one photo side by side, and then just transfer them to your phone, just throw your phone into the viewer, and then you can view pretty much 3D. So it essentially, instead of having a reel, you could create 100 photos. Now, I mean, you got to create the photos yourself, but the sheer fact of the matter is the easiest way to view it, rather than trying to go with the glasses, is just to transfer the photos to your phone and then throw your phone into the viewer. They're cheap these days, and then you can look at 3D to your heart's content, stuff that you created. And I know Beth was commenting, about making 3D. And I told her that was starting to make a 3D attachment for the front of my DSLR lens, but I never got around to finishing it. But I just wanted to show everybody that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I had muted myself because the dog's barking every time the mail comes. Derek just sent a link about a focusing viewer for, I think, about $16 that are new. So if you can't afford a Model D, or you only need a couple reels and you don't want to invest too heavily, that's one that Derek is recommending. So I'll have to check that out. Yeah, as Wayne mentioned, when they first started these things with Bakelite and real glass, you got a real nice view. You can understand why they couldn't keep making those and they had to make them cheaper. But the ones like the one I mentioned with the Mickey ears on it, by the time they got to those days, as a total kid's toy with the plastic lenses on it, the plastic lenses were not particularly sharp. What I shudder to think about is if you used one of those plastic lens that weren't sharp with that set of 3D images I showed at the beginning that weren't sharp. God forbid what that would look like. So it definitely a technology that's changed over the years. And there's people that go really crazy with these particular things. As Glenn mentioned, the Model D, there's all people have to get the first one, the Model A. They come with red button viewers, which some people think are better than the white button viewers. And then there's actually, you know, projectors you can get for these things, just like with the, you know, Stereo Realist, you can project them. They had Viewmaster projectors for a while, which I don't know if I've ever seen how well they work. They must have had you use some glasses or something for those. But they did the talking Viewmasters that Henry Fonda would come out and try to sell you with talking GAF, you know. So lots of variety of these things done over the years.
Yeah, I had both of the projectors you're talking about, the Viewmaster, and it's a dual light path. There's 2 bulbs, there's 2 lenses, and there was a polarizing filter, just like, you know, Captain EO, and you'd have to have it on a silver screen. That was the thing. In our previous house, I had a pull down silver screen, and then you could watch these things, but it never was as good. It was, you know, you can imagine your narrow field of view as opposed to this wide thing. So we're getting rid of all that.
Sorry, the dogs are making their presence.
Just call. There's horrible traffic down.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
get here when she gets. Sorry. Kathy was just mentioning about other reels like Zorro and Lost in Space. There were all sorts of great reels issued in the 60s for different TV shows and that. So Lost in Space, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I mean, there was no video at that time. You couldn't, you know, recollect these things. So, you know, if you were able to get the Man from U.N.C.L.E., you know, Viewmaster reel, or the Green Hornet, or some of those, and Bonanza, just all sorts of things in the 60s, a huge wave of, you know, pop culture stuff that was released back then that are real popular. I do have the Zorro Viewmaster. I'll have to convert those some particular day, but great stuff. And the booklets were fun too. It was the only way you could relive Zorro, is because there was no home video at that point in time. So yeah, lots of and some of these things go for a lot of money. Like some of the Viewmaster reels are fairly popular or common, but we did a show a couple weeks or months ago now about Freedom Land, the amusement park in the Bronx. And it wasn't around very long, and they did a Viewmaster set of that. And then that generally goes for about $100 a set to find those. And again, trying to find the set with the booklet and all the rest of it. So some of the Viewmasters can set you back a real pretty penny. They also did a lot of reels for customers. General Motors bought a whole bunch of reels where you could go and get a reel of looking at that particular year's worth of you know, the new GM cars, and they would mail them out to people. So if they couldn't get you into the dealer, you would look at the thing in 3D. I have a reel that somehow I ended up with. It was a doll factory, and they were taking samples of all the new dolls that were coming out. Never sold to the public, but they were sent out to toy shops across the country, trying to get you to look at their 3D doll, the 3D images of their dolls to place an order for them. So, oh, Greg, yeah, I'm sure you'd have all those. Monkeys, Timetable, Laugh-In, Flying Nun, Flintstone, Mary Poppins, yeah, you get a whole bunch of them. I don't have the Batman one. I got to get that one someday. You don't have Zorro, Greg, something left to go for. I was just wondering, there'd been a Star Trek, the original series Viewmaster. Mike, do you know, did Star Trek do one? Seeing if Mike Clark knows.
Yes, they did, and they used the model kit that AMT put out for the special effects because they didn't have access to the real Enterprise miniature when they were shooting the volumes.
Which episode did they base it on?
I can't remember the exact title, but it was one where they were kind of fighting the American Revolution on a duplicate Earth planet.
Oh yeah. The Mega
Warriors, something like that.
Yeah, Vista, yes.
Of all the episodes to pick, that would be one of my least favorite. I guess we could be happy they didn't do Spock's brain. So,
yeah,
but,
well, sometimes they couldn't, know in advance that a show would be a hit or not, so they'd wait till it was a few episodes in. Like for instance, Bill Cotter and I are big Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea fans, and the first Viewmasters they did, I think, were second or third season color episodes. And they fortunately were able to take the Viewmaster camera and shoot in the tank that they were doing the special effects in. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great set. That's the one with Nehemiah Persoff that set was based on, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, two guys, two convicts, and they try to steal the flying sub and realize they couldn't fly it. So, great.
Bill, while I got your ear, could you briefly describe how you scan these? Because when I've scanned Viewmasters before, I have to put them on the scanner and kind of guess where it's going to land. Have you developed a better way of doing that?
Yeah, you have to go back and watch the beginning of this show, Mike, because I covered that before you joined us. But no, because you're Mike Clark, I'll tell you. Scan on a flatbed scanner, and a guy actually wrote a program that you then take that into the program, and then it finds the views and matches them up and makes a anaglyphic view for you. So I don't have that on this computer. I've got it on the one behind me, but I'll send you the information later on. It was really cheap. It was like a $19 app or something like that, and really makes it a lot easier. Like I said, on a few slides, it blew it and didn't line them up quite right, but it basically captures the left view, the right view as separate JPEGs, and then does a 3D. Leslie's addicted. She's looking at her true views there. But I'll get that information for you, Mike, and send it to you.
Like you said, when the colors pop on these old Viewmasters, they really are sensational.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get a kick out of them. Like I mentioned, when we cleaned out Carol's dad's house, they had a whole box of Viewmasters that they bought on their vacations. They went on a lot of car trips to national parks and places like that, and you pull them out and you're looking at Mesa Verde or some of these places, and luckily the colors have held up well. And like I said, I razzed in some of the photography because some of this was just not great 3D images. I mean, they were just not framed right. But when you get a good 3D image and you're looking at it on a nice viewer, it really does pop, much more than the anaglyphic views I showed today, put out to you. So, back before the days where you could actually travel a lot because jet travel was so expensive and everything. Now, I never thought I'd get to some of these places. And like Greg Airborne mentioned, Disneyland existed to me through the TV show and through Viewmasters. And when I have quite a few very early ones from Disneyland. So when I get that in 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the Mickey Mouse Club Circus in 3D and other things that don't exist today. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? And get online and see how far the traffic is and how bad my daughter's backed up on her way here. She'll be in a good mood when she gets here.
I have a really obscure question, but there's probably people here who could answer. You showed 2 slides, which really weren't great 3D slides, but showed one of my favorite mosaics of the inside the castle with the Cinderella, getting her slipper. I have heard from, amateur Disney historians that the guy slipping the slipper on Cinderella's foot is actually a portrait of Herb Ryman. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I figure someone here might know. Told you it was obscure.
Anybody know? I'm just going to go look for a better picture of that. Let's see.
I don't want to slow things down here. If nobody knows, that's fine, but I'm just curious.
And I was going to say, while you're looking, Bill, for Don, in one of these packets, there's an old order form. This is dated 1962. And for reference, Glenn, the Model G that I have was $1.75. And the Model F lighted viewer that you were speaking of.
No, the D. D for dog.
Oh, were you speaking of the F also?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, the next one, the Model F lighted viewer, was $395, and then the Viewmaster focusing viewer Model D,
yes,
was $695.
Wow. Should have bought a box of those.
Yeah, and then their standard projector. They had a standard projector there, as you can see, was $995.
And that was probably just one image.
That was one image. Yeah, that wasn't the dual lens, dual lamp one that you were talking about.
Spectromatic or something, I think it was called.
Okay, this was dated 1962. Now, my grandfather had an older one. It was, I guess, the dark brown, blackish bakelite model.
Well, the first one was the Model A, and that was round.
No.
And very thin, and you can still find them. I picked one up years ago, but most of them have warped a little bit, so that they're kind of funky. And then the Model B was a little bit better.
Okay.
And then the C was the one that's most common. It's still bakelite. And then the D is the lighted one that's the best.
Okay, well then he probably had the C version, because I remember looking at that when I was a young child at his place. And that had some Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and stuff images on it that I recall. But again, his was the bakelite, a little harder one. You're saying the Model C, right?
I think that was probably a C.
Okay.
From what you're describing.
Yeah.
They're all available. I mean, if you want a whole collection, you can put them on your shelf and then someday put them on eBay.
Hey, I was just looking for that mural. I'll get to you in 1 second, Greg. I was just looking for that mural, and I found I skipped a reel from or a set of reels from Main Street. So if people want to put their glasses back on and go back to Main Street one more time.
In the meantime, Bill, is this the mural you're talking about, Don? I happen to have it on my wall.
That's it. That's the one.
Took the shot at Disney World and then had a print on metal made of it and put it on the wall. I liked it so much.
Oh, it's a gorgeous mural. It really is.
Oh, it is. And the fact they used real gold for it is just spectacular. Let me just go back and finish this last reel here real quick, because I had some shots that were not in others. So let me go back, Magic Kingdom. Okay, so we're back into 3D World, and Joey's back into Hello Kitty. Sorry, I couldn't resist. By the way, Joey sent us a package which had a piece of the old Coney Island boardwalk in it. My wife is really amazed by it and figure we're the only people on the West Coast that have a piece of the Coney Island boardwalk now in our house. So we thank you for it, Joey.
You're so welcome.
So we appreciate it. So we're looking over again some of the things that have changed. The paddle wheelers are gone. When we go into the Magic Kingdom, as I mentioned earlier, some of these views will look very much the same. It did reuse some views. We saw this of the train before, and we saw this of Mickey before. And we saw this one, but there's a shot coming up that I got a real kick out of, a piece of Disney history that's sadly no longer with us. We'll see in just a moment. Here it is. This is where you went into the Walt Disney story, and they had this great mural there of all the Disney characters. There's a similar one in the Roy Disney building out in Burbank, but this was just great that you have Mickey and Minnie basically at the center of it, either side of the hostess, and all the various Disney characters from the animated films. And it was great to walk up and find some total obscure character, the talking doorknob or something from Alice in Wonderland, Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet. And over the years, as they came up with new pictures, the artists would come in and add Bernard and Bianca from the Rescuers, or the characters from the Black Cauldron, that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, they covered this over the wall when they redid the theater, and then when they tried to take this wall out, they tried to find some way to salvage the mural, and unfortunately it all crumbled away and is lost. So it's well photographed, but I just thought this was great how that over the years the Disney artists kept updating it and adding to the list of characters in it. Then we go back out to Main Street. Again, some of these shots are different. The Flower Mart, the Hall of Plastic Flowers. Now, one of these shots would look very similar today. Some of the shops have changed a bit, but the buildings really have not. This one I wanted to show, again, the Swan Boats, one of the attractions that didn't last a long time. And it looks like there's quite a line for it if you look at the people there, you know, out on that walkway. The Swan Boats were guided by a system, a wire that was buried in the canal, and the boat would, you know, go around and make a path all the way around the castle area, and great fun, beautiful boats. They were only used for a while in terms of high occupancy of the park because they were labor intensive. You needed to have a hostess on each of the boats and the loaders and that sort of thing. The boats were sold off surplus, and there's a couple people in Florida that now proudly take people out for rides on their very own genuine Disney World Swan boat. And the Keystone Cops, some of the topiaries. Mickey leading the band. I mentioned a better view of his mace in his hand. Again, we got the Pearly Band. Chip and Dale. First Aid and Lost Kids just off to the right. The Crystal Palace. Winnie the Pooh. And again, we end up with a nighttime view of the fireworks. So last one there. Oh, Derek mentioned the tool was called Real Tool, no longer available. I'm sure I still have the installed disc here somewhere, so I'll have to do it. Chris Kelly, oh, we were saying we liked Chris Kelly now. She's saying, don't hate me, but my new Fantasyland team had to take that wonderful year out. We redid the facility to be Mickey's Town Square Theater and meet and greet. So it's true that you guys did try to save it, right, Chris? But it just came to pieces? You're muted there.
Yeah, absolutely. But the facility was so old, and all of the old building materials and the hazardous stuff, you know, and when they went to make rework in the facility, it had to come down. And yeah, it was sad. It was beautiful. We loved it.
Yeah. And Greg Airbar sat there patiently. So Greg, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about the talking Viewmaster. Not a whole lot, because there's not a whole lot to say really, except that there were two that I know of. There was the one that had the little plastic record, the translucent plastic record hidden behind the reel, and you bought this giant, you know, like double-sized Viewmaster, and then when you pushed the button, it played the record with a like a sapphire needle. So it was not the best experience to me, and I wanted to like it really bad, and I really wanted to have it, but I never really, never warmed up to it for a couple of reasons. And one was that except for like Sesame Street, which I guess was required to always have the authentic voices, and to things, this was before there were official Disney character voices, and things like narrated things. When they would do TV shows and cartoons, they really didn't even bother to approximate the voices. I mean, I have many records without original casts, and I can be very forgiving, even to some of the far off ones, but when they try hard, but they didn't try hard. So when you're paying extra for the Viewmaster as well as the talking reels, because the reels were expensive and came in this tray, and the talking isn't even good, I didn't see the point. However, in the 80s, I believe, they came out with something called electronic talking Viewmaster. And that was a kind of a floppy record. And it was blister packed into the bottom of like this card. There was a little like 4-inch record blister packed into a card, and the reel was blister packed into the top. So when you slid it into the machine, the record played at the bottom at a much more higher fidelity, and then you press the button the same way. So not only did the record play in a much better quality, but they used original soundtrack material. So as a matter of fact, it's the only Bugs Bunny soundtrack with actual music, the only Scooby-Doo soundtrack with real background music. It was authentic, and it probably cost more, but it was worth it. But it wasn't reliable. You had to do it over and over again, sometimes to make it work, things like that. And it was too little too late. It was the 80s and we were getting into video and people simply just didn't buy it. So it maybe lasted 2 years, which was a shame because it was so much better. And that was the end of that.
Well, timing's everything. You invent the perfect system and then video comes out right behind you.
Right.
Great.
Oh, did anybody have the last the 3D Viewmaster that was like the virtual Viewmaster? That we bought one of those at Christmas, and it was astonishing because you hooked it up to your you put your phone in it, and it transformed your phone into a virtual viewer, and so you were looking into outer space or looking into there were two of them. There were only two. That was the problem. And I don't know why it didn't catch on, why it didn't last, but there were only two, and it didn't go any farther than that. There was, I think, a scenic one and an outer space one, and you stood in the room and you turned around and it turned with you. Wow. And it was pretty darn amazing. Yeah, but I just think it didn't move fast enough with video. It was competing with a rapidly changing video market.
They're also pretty expensive. I mentioned that earlier, how they come up with these things and they're a real novelty, but you want to be spending $20 a pop or $30 a pop for something you look at for a couple times. If they price these things at $5 or something, people would buy 20 of them, have a great time. But if you got to buy them at $30 a pop, you're not going to buy 20 of them.
Yep, there you go.
Well, in case anybody wonders about the hiker, they rescued him in the park with a broken leg. So it's just getting updates. Brent, you had your hand up? There you go.
Yes, I have another sort of true view viewer. It looks like this. It takes little rolls that come in these little boxes. And here's what a roll looks like. It's film all rolled up. I've got one loaded. It's World's Fair number 3. Looks like that. And I'm looking at Venezuela's modernistic glass and concrete pavilion. Moving on to the Peru Pavilion with a llama in the lobby. And you can see the reel comes from this side and it collects on this side. And it's like the Viewmaster or like the one that, what was it, that we've been seeing with the card, but it's just a roll of film. Exactly the same idea, just a different packaging.
Half frame.
Yeah, I have a number of those reels from the 39 New York World's Fair. And they're great to get, but unfortunately they scratch really easy. And as they go through that viewer, people aren't taking care of them, trying to find a good collection. But I think I have 10 reels from the 39 World's Fair, but I don't have a viewer. So I've always just had to hold it up. So one more thing I have to go and look at. So right. Real small images, aren't they?
Yes, they are small images. They are somewhat larger than the Viewmaster images. Let's see if I can hold up something white behind them and maybe you will be able to get an idea of what size they are. I don't know. I'll hold it up close to mine.
Yeah, they're about half the size of a 35mm image.
Okay.
Yeah. Wayne, were you waving for something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that people have been interested in 3D almost since the beginning of photography. If you go to the Abe Lincoln House in Springfield, Illinois, one of their prized possessions is a tabletop stereo viewer that looks like a wooden box about a foot on the side. But that what's one of his prized possessions.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, and like I said, I think stereo photography can have some great fun. It's just, you know, these days trying to even find a place to get film developed is, you know, Costco just took out all their labs, and you know, I used to, you know, put the stuff in and tell everybody, you know, don't don't cut the film, and they couldn't understand that I wanted back a roll of film uncut because I was going to mount it in 3D views, you know, and you'd get over there and, oh, you know, we cut it all apart for you, and you know, that's not what I wanted. So very frustrating. Well, I hope people enjoyed look back in 3D. Like I said, it's a not a perfect system with the anaglyph system, but it's a way of doing it until we all get our shuttered glasses or polarized. I think Jim Brown was saying the polarized ones don't work too well over the computer. But you know, for me, it was been a great way to go back and see things that are gone, like the Swan boats, or you know, some of the other World of Motion Pavilion, things that they've taken out over the years. Next week, Carol's going to be our guest speaker. So Carol, she wasn't ready for this, but I'm going to put her on the spot. Would you like to just remind folks? Oh, look at Leslie's glasses. Ice cream glasses, of course. Okay. So Carol's going to be taking us to the J. Paul Getty Museum next week.
Yes. Yes, through certain parts of the collection that are called decorative arts, and but fancy ones. Yeah, I'm not sure what to say about it now, but we're going to look at all different types of decorative arts, including furniture and little pieces and tapestries, and I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, well, beds are furniture too. We have all sorts of different furniture in the Getty collection. And we picked pieces that we like, that we thought would be interesting for everyone else to see.
Yeah, one nice thing about the pictures Carol is going to show is, just like they had a lot of pictures on these Disney things that you can't get unless you're a Disney photographer, the Getty pictures, they have some really nice close-up details and stuff that, you know, you're not allowed to touch things, you're not allowed to do things, but you know, Carol has gone on tours where they'll open up the furniture, like some of the cabinets, and show you what's inside that you can't, you know, if you go there yourself, God forbid you open up the cabinet. So
you can't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know?
Yeah, no, you can't get close enough to do that. But we don't have what we have is pretty much from the Getty website. All of the items are online now that are on the website. The beauty is you can see things that are not on display at this point, you know, because they don't have to be out on the floor in order for you to see them. And if you're interested, you can probably do some more research to find out more about a particular item. But there's some beautiful stuff anyway.
Yeah, if you're out in LA, you've probably been to the Getty, and it's very impressive what they have. And one of the things they do, you know, like most museums, rotating exhibits, so that every time you go, it's something different. Unless you go like Carol every week, then it's not different.
Yeah, they do. They have wonderful special exhibits that usually last for several months. There's a beautiful big space on at the top of the stairs in one of the buildings that they just redo each time they have a new exhibit. So they had sculpture from Rome and Greece that were things that were found under the ocean, from ships that capsized or that were somehow sunk. And there was stuff there I loved. And then I can't think of all of the stuff right now, but they're really great exhibits. If you do come to Los Angeles, the museum itself is free admission. Right now, you have to make an appointment to get in. It's opening actually next week to the public, but you have to make a reservation to get in at this point. Normally, you don't have to. And the only thing you have to pay for is parking. Everything else is free. So you can't beat that.
No, it's interesting talking about how things change. Carol does school tours for students, and then she'll have a room that she knows where everything is, but then say, oh, it's not there. We took this one out and put that one back. So
True.
A lot of times she's sitting on her computer just studying about what they've changed in the room so that when she walks in, the picture that she knew everything about is gone, and there's a new picture. So now she's researching so she can answer questions or talk about that. So you put a lot of time and effort. I mean, I put all of my time and effort into the Disney stuff. She puts a lot of time and effort into her Getty research. Pleased she's going to be able to share it with some of it with us next week.
And my partner, Karen, is fabulous. She's really a good speaker, very entertaining, and knows so much. So she actually has all the stuff on her computer that we're going to show. And I will chime in when it's my turn.
Carol, I know you work at the main museum, but are you going to have anything from the villa? If not, that's another topic for you.
Not for this tour, but you know, the villa's open again too. So you can see all this stuff online. I have not been to the villa since it opened a couple of weeks ago. But we're familiar with the stuff at the Getty Center. But if you come out to visit again, we can take you to the villa.
Yeah, so you have free parking. Carol can get you in for free parking, but then you're gonna have to buy her lunch. So
yeah, it was funny. It took me literally years to get into the villa the first time, because every time I was out there, I didn't have enough advance notice because you have to make reservations for parking.
It's a much smaller. It's a much smaller museum, and the parking is much smaller. I mean, the Getty Center has about 9 floors of parking. So it's, I don't think you can ever get up there and not get in, maybe once in a great while, I don't know. But anyway, the villa, you do have to make reservations ahead of time.
Oh, you remember, Carol, when we tried to take my brother Kevin there? Excuse me. He was out over the Christmas holidays.
So backed up.
Yeah, tip to the wise, do not try to go to the Getty at the Christmas holidays, because the 9 floors of parking are all full. And literally, this is no joke. We were driving down the street, and there had to be a mile of traffic on Sepulveda Boulevard of people waiting for somebody to come out of the Getty so they could get in. So we just drove by, looked at all the people, and said, let's go to Santa Monica and go to the beach. So you do not want to go to the Getty.
No, that's true, but that's very unusual. But now that it's opening after more than a year of being closed, I don't know what the situation is going to be. And it all depends on how the virus goes as to how many people they're allowed to have in at one time. You know, it's right now not full capacity, and it's gone really well, but we'll see what happens.
Somebody had a question for you. Is Karen the one that joined us a couple months ago for the practice?
Same Karen, one of my good friends.
Great. Well, it's again, the Getty is a great museum, and you know, poor Carol has been locked away from it for a year with the pandemic. So appreciate the folks that if they join us next week, she can share one of her her passions. That's
true.
So thank you, everybody. And again, the chat stuff here is real fascinating. I'm going to take a whole bunch of these links. I'm going to also try to capture when we end one of these chats, it automatically emails me a transcript of them. I'm going to try to find a way to stick that on my website. So people that want to get the 3D photography links, I'll put it up there in the World's Fair, Zoom page with a link to the transcript, so you can get the links in there. And appreciate the folks like Derek and Richard and others that know more about 3D and putting in there. And thanks again for Glenn and Chris for saving those pieces of Disney history for us. So we'll see you next week, and I hope everybody has a good week in between. See you next week at the Getty.
Thank you, Bill.
Great job again.
Great show.
Thanks.